everybody, it's Rick from RC Kinsman Studio. Thanks for dropping by. In the studio today, I'm going to be showing you how to create a galaxy watercolor background. And I'm going to be using the Arteza 36 Half Pan Palette. So let's waste no more time. Let's head over to the craft desk and let's get started, shall we? Hey everybody, thanks for joining me back over at the craft desk. Okay, the 36 Arteza watercolor palette is a really good palette. I was very happy with it. It has the great little handheld finger ring, and it has really good colors. I was very surprised at the quality of the colors. They're a student grade, but even though they say they're premium, but it's a really good palette. I was very happy with it. So we're going to make this galaxy background. So I've taped down my watercolor paper. And I'm using the Arteza watercolor paper, and I'm going to wet it fully. I'm using the smooth side. I'm just flooding it with water with my flat brush, and I'm going to take and I'm going to flow in some colors. I'm going to add in several different colors that you wouldn't really think of being in a galaxy background. I'm going to start out with some yellow. I'm using the lemon yellow. And I'm going to flood that on my paper, and then I'm going to come in and add some of the other colors. I'm going to add, basically starting with primary colors. I think that's magenta I just added, and I'm going to add a little green. So I'm throwing that in. I'm going to throw in a little blue. Just keeping it going. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to add just a touch more of a little darker yellow. And now we're going to heat set. I'm going to get this nice and heat set, and I'm going to dab up some of the excess water. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to heat set all this, and then I'm going to come back in after I get the little hair off of my watercolor paper. I'm going to come back in and I'm going to add in another layer of color. Just making sure it's nice and dry before we get started on our next step. We want to make sure this is completely dry. Okay, so you saw me testing it with the back of my hand there. That way I know that it's dry. Now I'm going to also throw in a little bit of the metallic watercolor from Gamby Tamby, or however you say that. I really don't know. You can correct me if I know I'm wrong. So I'm going to go back in with my darker yellow, and I'm just going to add in a second layer that's a little bit more intense. And I'm making sure that I'm really not using too much water because I don't want to mess up with those layers underneath. So I'm going to throw in a little purple or violet, which is what's in the pan. And then I'm going to throw in some blues. I think that's steel blue that I'm using right now. I'm going to let it mix, and then I'm going to come back in with a magenta, I believe that's what that is. And I'm just going to mix these around. I'm going to throw in a little bit of the gold watercolors because I want to have a little bit iridescent feel back behind there. So now we're going to heat set that again, getting that nice and dry before we start coming in with our darker layers. It's going to dry until it gets done. You can't watercolor until you get it all completely dry. I'm sorry. It's a long process, and I've actually sped this video up. As you can tell, I wished I could watercolor this fast, but there's no way. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dry that a little bit more, and I'm pressing down, making sure my frog tape is staying down where I want it to. I don't want it lifting up on me. That would be bad. Okay, now I'm going to come in and I'm going to add my black. Now, the black in this set didn't really seem like a true black to me. It was more of an umber color. To me, it looked more raw umber than it did black. So I'm going to add in a little bit of the indigo, because if you mix black and blues, or browns and blues together, you get a nice pretty black. So I'm going to make a nice true darker black, and natural mixed blacks look better really anyway than really your palette's blacks. So I'm going to add in some of that, and I've got it too thin, so I'm going to have to come back and darken all this up. So I'm coming back in and adding the next layer, and I'm making it thicker paint, so less water, more paint. I'm going to make another puddle. I didn't make enough the first time. Silly boy. So you can see me mixing it there. Now I'm coming back in with that heavier layer. And I'm leaving some of those spaces open so that you can see the colors in the background. That's one of the things you really want to do, is you want to leave open spaces on your galaxies, because you're going to see those colors back there. Excuse me. I had a little cough. And I'm going to dab off some color because I had a little too much paint on there. I want to see a little bit more of those background colors coming through the first layer. So I'm going to heat set this, and then I'm going to come in after I get this nice and dry, and I'm going to add the next layer of black. I told y'all this was a process. This takes a little time. You can do this, though. I have faith in y'all. Y'all have fun doing this. This is actually really easy. It's a lot easier than it looks. Okay, so I got that almost dry, and we're going to come in and sit anytime now. Okay, so I'm mixing up my darker black. And I'm getting as dark and as thick as possible that I can still move it around. So making up a lot because I've got to cover this whole piece of paper, which is like 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I'm going to add just the tiniest bit of water. Add some more color. I'm going to come back in with that next layer, and I'm going to darken that up. I'm leaving some of those open spaces still. As you can see, I don't want to cover them all up. I want some of that to show through. So now I'm going to come in. I'm going to just lightly tap it using my brush, or using my paper towel. I'm done with the painting right now. So I'm going to dry that, and then I'm going to come in and I'm going to flick some stars on. And I'm going to do that by using the Stampin' Up! Shimmer paint in the... What color is that? It is the Shimmer White, I think. Frost White. It's the Frost White Shimmer paint is what I'm fixing to use. And I'm just going to take... I'm testing my paper to make sure it's dry, because I don't want any of that shimmer paint to mix in with the watercolors. So there's my shimmer paint. I'm going to take it. It only takes a little bit. Very, very little. It's really pretty. You're going to shake it up. It's got a ball inside. And you're going to hear it when it starts thickening up because the ball starts getting slower. So I've got that going. And I'm going to add just a little bit to an acrylic block. And I'm going to take and add some water to that to thin that down. And I got my water going. Now I'm going to come in with a brush, and I'm just going to flick paint off that block onto the paper. I'm just going to flick my stars out. And actually, as I'm sitting here watching this video, I realized, I could have stopped right there and been okay. But I added a few more. To me, it didn't show up as well as I thought it did in real life. But as I'm sitting here watching the video recording this, I realized, it really does. I could have stopped a little earlier. So now I'm going to dry that shimmer paint. And I'm going to paint in a background with some dark colors. I want a little shadow. I want some foreground going on. So I'm going to come in after I get this dry, and I'm going to paint in my foreground. Okay, I'm going to get my foreground going. And I'm just going to use that same really dark black paint that I used before. And I'm going to paint in a landscape line, or horizon line, I should say, if you want to get technical about it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint that in and fill that in. And then I'm going to be all done. And I'm going to dry that, and I'll peel off that tape, and I'll be done. But as far as the Arteza watercolor palette goes, I'm really happy with it. I'm going to play with it some more. So I'll have a couple more videos coming up soon with me using this in different ways. So that's really all for now. I will talk to y'all later. If you can drop by my blog and check out the card that I end up making with this. Let me peel that tape off. That's another thing, y'all. Y'all make sure y'all pull that tape towards you and not away from you, because you're less likely to rip your card stock that way. Okay, so that's our galaxy background, all complete. I'm going to zoom in, let y'all get a good look at it. Thanks for dropping by. I appreciate it. Love you guys. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Bye.